Hey everyone, this is David Betancourt, one half of Blerds in the Attic, here with another unboxing video here on the Blerds in the Attic channel. Now you may be saying to yourself, okay, is the Blerds in the Attic channel just Dave unboxing his toys? No, yes, that's a part of it. That's not going to be all of it. We've taken a brief hiatus with the podcast. Hopefully you guys have checked out the first few episodes we have on Spotify and Apple. But we will be coming back soon, and the plan is to eventually have our podcast air here on this YouTube channel as well. But in the meantime, you guys can check me out unboxing some really cool stuff. So I picked both of these up the other day. I just gotten back to DC from a quick business trip to New York and had to make a quick run to Target. And lo and behold, these two bad boys were here. These are both McFarlane 1/6 scale, aka 12-inch statues, Marvel characters. Obviously, McFarlane, at least for now, has a DC license. But they do dabble in Marvel every now and then. But when they do make Marvel stuff, it's generally always in this form, kind of statuesque, no articulation. So, for example, this Ultraman I have here, this is an articulated figure that you can move around and do cool poses with. I love this figure. It's probably my favorite figure that I got this year, McFarlane DC wise in 2025. As you can see with the statues, that's not the case. That's probably the deal McFarlane had to make to not ruffle the feathers of Marvel with their figures in terms of their deal with Hasbro. So whenever McFarlane does make Marvel stuff, it's usually in statue form like this, either in 1/6 form or smaller, sometimes bigger. But these are really cool figures, and what really drew me to them, one thing I love about McFarlane, and I really think they've really forced other toy makers to step up the game, is how well they can match an art style. And what I mean by that is, take, for example, this Punisher figure here. I knew as soon as I saw this Punisher figure that it was based off the art of Jim Lee. Obviously, Jim Lee is the big kahuna over at DC Comics right now. But back in the day, and back when this comic book came out, Punisher Warzone, he was an up and coming hot artist for Marvel Comics. Obviously, the biggest thing Jim probably did at Marvel Comics was his early 90s run on X-Men with writer Chris Claremont. Those are legendary comics that sold in the millions of copies. And again, Jim's at DC now, but this is one cool thing about the McFarlane deal. They can kind of flip through the pages, see what they want. But what I really like about McFarlane is how well they can match the art style. So you can look on the back and you can see this classic. This is Punisher Warzone #8. Boy, I really miss those prices. Look at this. Now, this was actually an expensive comic back in the day. Back when this comic came out, late 80s, early 90s, you can get a comic book for about $1. Those were the days. This comic back then cost $1.50. But I remember this cover. Jim Lee was a great, really great. He drew one of my favorite Punishers. Probably my favorite Punisher artists are Jim Lee and John Romita Jr. That's actually how I discovered John Romita Jr. back in the early 90s when he first started doing the art for Punisher Warzone. But I really like, you take a look at the cover right here, and then you look at the figure itself. That's a pretty good replica. And McFarlane, I think, just does a great job of replicating the artwork and really giving credit to the artist that created the work. Another example that I think of when it comes to McFarlane is there are tons of Batman McFarlane figures, in the 7-inch scale, based off of the art of Greg Capullo. And as soon as I see it, I go, that's Greg Capullo's art. And that's one of the things I really like about McFarlane. And that's how you can tell that you have an artist at the top as a big boss. Obviously, Todd McFarlane's one of the greatest and most influential comic book artists of all time, based on his work at Marvel, what he did with Spider-Man, what he did founding Image Comics. So when you have an artist at the top, you have someone who appreciates art styles, and being able to incorporate art styles into a figure like this, I think is really cool. So, yeah, I think this figure is great. Really caught my eye. Again, the thing that really pulled me to it was I didn't even have to turn it to the back to see the Jim Lee Punisher War Journal cover here, because I just knew that's Jim Lee's art. So let's go ahead and unbox this bad boy. You gotta have scissors with McFarlane figures. That's a must. They really get these things clamped in here. Right. So it's a slow burn. A workout term there. Shout out to my uncle Rick who taught me how to lift weights. Oh yeah, this is really now. McFarlane figures also the 1/6 scales. They come with these like kind of comic book backgrounds, which I think are really cool. I also like how it's got the little window up in the top left corner, which is exactly how comic books did it back in the day. I generally don't use these with my figure. I'm looking at a couple of McFarlane 1/6 statues that I have over there. I've got the Captain America one, and I've got the Spider-Man one. Both of those, ironically, are based on the art of Todd McFarlane. This is the first 1/6 McFarlane statue that I have that isn't based off the art of Todd, but is based off the art of someone else. And in this case, it's Jim Lee. Jim Lee is one of my favorite artists ever, so of course I was going to get this figure. And another cool thing about these 1/6 scales is they come with the comic, so you can take a trip down memory lane and read the comic that inspired the figure. All right, let's see if I can get this bad boy out of here. Gotta make a couple more snips. Oh, they've got the gun packed in real good here, so it's gonna take a second. Oh yeah, this is yeah. I'm probably not going to use the background, so you can kind of see right here. This is the intended. It actually looks pretty cool with that background. I'm not going to lie. Maybe I'll reconsider when I display this. But this is really really cool. It's heavy, 12-incher 1/6 scale, but not too heavy. Um, Again, look at that Jim Lee art. Can we get that right there? It says introducing damage. That was a character from the comic, so it's obviously replica of the cover. Really like this. This is really cool. I don't read Punisher as much as I used to. Probably get back into it soon. My going back into certain characters a lot of times now is influenced by the live action stuff. Obviously, I've seen all the Punisher movies, even the old Dolph Lundgren one, even the one with Thomas Jane. Uh, Obviously, our new Punisher right now, not too new, he's been around for a while, is John Bernthal, Washington, D.C. native John Bernthal, I might add. And we're about to see him in Spider Man Brand New Day. Obviously, and for those of you who listened to our last podcast, we did figure out who is cutting John Bernthal's hair and giving him those sick fades. So we'll be talking about that on the next podcast. Um, but man, I like this is really cool. Again, I love the Jim Lee inspired art. Actually, I really kind of dig the Punisher look of the early '90s. Pretty simplistic. They went really big with the skull in those days, and obviously it was early '90s, so everybody was really cock diesel, super muscular. That's just how the superheroes were drawn in the '90s. Very extreme. Um, this ammunition is very Cable-like. Cable from the X-Men. Uh, Pretty interesting there. But again, the '90s big guns were really cool. In the '90s, it's actually the detail of this is insane. I mean, even here on the bottom, if you look under his feet, there's like piping or tubing or something like that. They went all out with this. So excellent figure here with this Punisher figure. I like it a lot. I actually, when I read Punisher comic books the most, is when I was a kid, when I probably shouldn't have been reading Punisher comics, but my father was a big fan of the Punisher. It was one of his favorite characters. My dad actually had the Amazing Spider-Man comic where the Punisher made his first appearance. He ended up giving it to one of his cousins, my cousin Louis, who's also the big comic book person in the family. And my dad always complains about that, giving that comic away. But me and my dad used to read Punisher comics together, and so it's always a trip down memory lane thinking about those comics we've read back in the day. And we've read, the Punisher, Punisher Warzone, Punisher War Journal. The Punisher was a very popular character back then, still is now. Um, Obviously, it's going to be a big deal when he comes back in Spider-Man: Brand New Day. But this is a very cool looking figure. I like this a lot. So I'm just going to place this over here. Um, yeah, this is great. You can still kind of see it in frame a little bit here. This is a very it looks even cooler when you sit it down and just kind of like take a look at it. That's pretty cool. So the next figure we have that we picked up, another 1/6 scale 12 incher, Deadpool. Uh, Again, this is one where I'm a pretty big Deadpool fan. Love the movies. Love the original stuff by Rob Liefeld, his co-creator. But again, this is just fantastic artwork right here. And you look at the comic book cover, and then you look at the figure. It's the same thing, and that's McFarlane really takes to the next level in terms of getting the look right. And if I'm the artist who did this, whether it's this artist here, Jim Lee, whoever, I think that's pretty cool. I say that as someone who's had some of their ideas adapted into action figures. Shout out to my boy Boricua Miles Morales in the Boricua suit. So let's open up this Deadpool and see what we have here. All right. Again, you always got to have scissors with McFarlane. So let's take a look at the background first. Again, these 1/6 figures, 12 inchers, they come with comic books. The comic book that inspired the art. I think that's really cool. Just in the same way that you know DC Studios wants you to know before a movie that you can go to the comic shop and read a comic. I think it's great that McFarlane, and it makes sense. He's a legend in the comic book industry. Um, I love that they include the comic too. That's a nice touch, because what that could end up being for someone that maybe just thinks it's a cool figure but has never read the comic, that's a way to create a new fan. I like that a lot. You can see the background right here where you would put Deadpool. Again, I normally don't use these and probably won't use these, but let's take a look at old Deadpool here. Again, with these McFarlane figures, you always have to have your scissors on ready. One more. All right. This is great. And again, another thing I like about these 1/6 scale, the 12 inches, is they look heavy, but they're not that heavy. And I think that's great. Especially, one accidentally falls, hopefully it won't break. But check out this Deadpool here. Now, what I really like about this is the detail on the bottom. So you can see Deadpool, he's packing heat, got the two katana blades behind him. But look at the bottom. You've got Captain America's shield, looks like Thor's hammer back there. You got Iron Man's mask right here. Again, very cool figure here. Like what McFarlane did. Totally captured the art of the artist here in both of these. So let's take a look at both of them together. We've got Punisher here, Deadpool here. Very cool figures. Now I've got to kind of make space on my little shelf over here where I keep all my action figures on display, but fun problem to have. Great figures. Love the 1/6 scale. Again, no articulation, because I think when it comes to Marvel, that's the deal McFarlane had to make to not compete with Hasbro. Uh, Great figure, really cool. Look at the detail here in the handles of Deadpool's katana blade right there. See the red diamonds there. Again, that's just great. Really great attention to detail. These are excellent figures. So that was another unboxing from your boy David Betancourt. Hope you guys enjoyed that little trip down memory lane for me, thinking about all the Punisher comics I read with my dad back in the day, and the X-Force comics I read back in the day that featured Deadpool. Again, we are on a brief hiatus with Blerds in the Attic, but we are coming back strong very soon with our latest episode. In the meantime, please check out our podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever you stream. And again, we will be bringing the podcast here to the YouTube channel soon. And we look forward to sharing that with you guys. Thanks for watching. Talk to you guys next time.